Islam,
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 Islam.
Islam.
Welcome to the Moorish Sense Channel. I want to welcome to the Moorish Sense Channel. If it's your first time tuning in, you are in for a great segment. I'm your host, Brother Brendan Jordan Hill, Sheik of the Moorish Science Temple of America, Temple number 13, located at 1055 North Milton Avenue. And to my right, we have
I'm Brother Valance Bey, Sheik of the Moorish Science Temple of America, 1055 Milton Avenue.
Praise
Praise
Allah.
Allah. Islamism.
Islam. Well, we're going to start our program, our segment off, as always, with the Moorish American prayer, and it's going to be led by the Sheik Valance Bey.
Islam,
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 Islam.
Islam.
Allah, the Father of the universe,
Allah, the Father of the universe,
the Father of love,
Father of love,
truth,
truth,
peace,
peace,
freedom,
freedom,
and justice.
and justice.
Allah is my protector,
Allah is my protector,
my guide,
my God,
and my salvation,
and my salvation,
by night
by night
and by day,
and by day,
through his holy prophet,
through his holy prophet,
Drew Ali.
Drew Ali.
Amen.
Amen.
Islamism.
Islam,
Praise Allah.
Islam Moors.
Man.
We praises to Allah, Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. We want to give honor to Prophet Noble Drew Ali, the founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America. We want to give honor to all past and present leaders of the Moorish Science Temple of America, those that we know, those that we don't know. We want to give honor to our administration, our leaders. Our National Grand Sheik is T. Jones Bey, and also our national officials, our officials at 1055 North Milton Avenue, and all the respective temples. We want to give honor to all Moorish Americans, everything Moorish, those who are teaching, aiding, and assisting our people in the great program of uplifting fallen humanity. I want to say Islam to Brother Pennington Bey, Islam Mo.
Islamism.
Good to see you. I'm glad you're tuning in. Hope that you and the Moors in Illinois are well. Hope all is well. And also to my wife, who's upstairs, she's tuning in as well. Islam. She gets joined the ill. Tuning in. Love you. And Sheik Valance Bey, you can give your honors as well.
Oh yeah. Praise Allah. Give honors to my wife, my family, Moorish and biological. And just praising Almighty God Allah for, waking up and, doing what we do.
That's
praise
right.
Allah.
That's
Yeah.
right. Praise Allah.
Praise Allah.
All right, so we're going to get into our segment. Sheik, you want to introduce our viewers and listeners to the segment this evening?
Yeah, praise Allah. So basically, we just going to be doing, if you will, a little powwow in reference to some things that people have been miseducated on. We're going to ask a few questions because we are interactive. We are interactive show. We don't just want to get on here and just be talking and spewing a lot of information or whatever the case may be.
That's right.
We would like to, number one, we make it make sense. And when we say make it, we're not trying to put a square peg in a round hole. That's not what we're trying to do.
That's right.
What we want to do is to be able to show people exactly what the prophet is teaching, right, and how to implement the Prophet Noble Drew Ali's teachings and the teachings of the Moorish Science Temple of America in real time, right?
That's right.
We not trying to have we don't have any aha moments for, people. If we can teach and you can learn something from us, praise Allah. If you can teach us something, then teach it,
That's right.
So one of the things that has been in the news lately, especially after the Super Bowl and the great artist who performs, I guess the song is Not Like Us.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Kendrick Lamar.
Islam.
You hear and I haven't heard this in a long time, right? Um, I used to hear it all the time about 40 acres and a mule. People
Mhm.
wanting their 40 acres and a mule,
Right.
right? And as I continue to grow and develop, I'm like, well, I hear people say it, and our question to the listening audience, whoever's listening via whatever venue is listening, where does this 40 acres and a mule thing come from?
Right.
Where if anybody knows
Hmm.
what was it? Or, was everybody supposed to receive 40 acres and a mule? I mean, because you hear people say it, and when they say it, they act like everybody is owed 40 acres and a mule.
A lot of people coined the phrase too. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Spike Lee's production team is called 40 Acres and a Mule.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
so he named, his production team, which actually, by the way, I think was very brilliant.
It was
To
smart.
do.
Yeah. It was smart on
I
his
think
end.
it was brilliant to do.
Hmm.
Um And I don't know if I ever heard. Have you ever heard or seen an interview with Spike Lee explaining 40 Acres and a Mule, Mo
No.
Man?
No.
All right, yeah. So
Check it out.
just for the listening audience, what help us out a little bit. Let's what does or when you heard it, or what does it mean to you, or like what were you told about it? I'm interested in hearing or saying some things. We get a listening audience. But anyhow, after the Super Bowl, everybody's like making Kendrick Lamar, who by the way,
Hmm.
um, a lot of people didn't like Kendrick Lamar before that song.
No, he didn't.
And then all of a sudden, my wife and I, we were having a discussion, and she was like, everybody, they didn't like Kendrick Lamar at first. Now everybody like him.
Right.
And people are going around like he's the spokesperson, like, him, whatever it is that he displayed. Maybe I missed it. I don't know what was happening. I mean, because I really don't even watch TV like that, and
Right. Yeah.
I didn't see it. I just saw bits and pieces of it, but everybody's saying he sent out a
A lot
message.
of symbolism, a lot of
Um,
numerology, a lot of gematria, things of that nature.
yeah, yeah. I mean, all that's good and well, but
Hmm.
here we are, um, with a new president and all. What? I mean,
I
so what
think,
does the 40 acres and a mule thing mean to the listening audience?
if I'm not mistaken, the president was actually in attendance at that performance as well.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, I
okay,
think he was there too. So it was just
okay.
it was a lot going on. And we're not talking specifically about the performance, but
Yeah, yeah.
where we're going with,
Just
yeah.
what we want is to have a discussion around this phrase 40 acres and a mule.
Mhm.
That's, I mean, starting out, because of course we'll get into some other topics. Did you see anything in the chat or anybody? Uh,
Well, yeah, Deputy Sheikah's Jornell said, I always was taught that 40 acres and a mule was associated with reparations.
okay,
Good
great.
point.
I'm glad. I'm glad, Deputy Sheikis. I'm glad that you had courage enough to mention that and share with us what was told to you, because
Okay.
something similar was told to me. That same thing, right?
Mhm.
But the prophet also says, "Man or woman knows not by being told."
That's right.
So when you do a little deeper investigation, what you'll come to find out is that 40 acres and a mule was not even an official situation. It was General Sherman's, who was Abraham Lincoln's one of Abraham Lincoln's general,
That's right.
who came up with field order number 15.
Right.
And special field order number 15, one of the reasons that they came up with it, because when they were traveling like through Georgia, places like Florida and South Carolina, there were a lot of slaves following um, the battalion or the company, or you know whoever General Sherman was in charge of.
That's right.
So as a result of that, General Sherman came up with this special field order without the authorization of the White House or any of the administrators at that particular point in time, he came up with this special field order, and he told the slaves that were following him to number one, he didn't want them to, from what I'm understanding, he didn't want them to get hurt, and
Right.
also he didn't want them, because they were not soldiers and may not have been trained in warfare. He didn't want them to give their location away. So there was land between South Carolina, Florida, and Georgia
Mm-hmm.
that he promised those particular slaves within within that territory, or in between that territory, 40 acres and a mule.
Contraband.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this was not authorized by President Abraham Lincoln. And when President Lincoln got assassinated, President Andrew Johnson got into office and basically was like, no, that's not going to happen. And the reason that was because they didn't, it didn't go through the appropriate channels for it to happen. And also, I'm thinking it probably was more slaves than could potentially fit on the 40 acres.
Right.
And not only that, yeah, it was just a lot of other politics and stuff involved in it.
That's
So
right. It's a
now
false narrative they give out too, and Sheikh's Valansbey says Islam.
Islam, praise Allah.
So it's a false narrative, and I'm not cutting you off on that.
No, you good, Mo. Yeah.
When you investigate that whole aspect of 40 acres and a mule, what we've been taught in school is actually contrary or contradictory to what President Andrew Johnson was actually trying to do. They'll say, well, President Andrew Johnson was a Southerner. He was appeasing, the Southerners and things of that. Not at that time. But when you really look at it, as you're mentioning, you had an institution at that time that was called the Freedmen's Bureau. The Freedmen's Bureau of Abandoned Lands as well.
Okay.
There was a lot more, as we're going to get into during this segment, where we're going to find that the issue, because we see a lot of our people gravitate into this whole reparations movement, and really, they don't really. I don't think that they. I'm not going to say they don't quite understand what they're kind of hitching their wagon to.
Yeah.
But I really don't think that many of our people have a strong enough historical foundation to realize when you're dealing with the institution of slavery. The institution of slavery is so profound because you're not just dealing with what they taught us. And what I mean taught us, I'm talking about the film industry. We're talking about Hollywood.
Yeah, that's right.
We're talking about the public education system, which is being dismantled right now.
That's right.
We're talking about a lot of things that have happened and occurred over the last 153 years that have really watered down our minds. And then you also are looking at the institution of Reconstruction as well. And we know and understand that, again, some people, Moorish Americans, Asiatics, etc., they think that Reconstruction was a good thing. But really, when you study and investigate the teachings of the Prophet Noble Dry Ali and the Prophet Noble Dry Ali's divine warning to the nations, the Prophet Noble Dry Ali explains to us exactly what the 14th Amendment was all about. The fact that it was no need for the application of it for our people, as we're going to get into during this this segment. And then also, as you had mentioned, Sheik, and I'm gonna pass it back to you.
Yeah.
The fact that we have a misunderstanding about history. And this is why the prophet says that 2 hours in an up-to-date library may relieve our men of letters. Well, it's going to relieve the unlettered ones as well. Brother Pennington Bay said, Sheik Pennington Bay said, that's right. Moors need to obey the prophet and investigate these things. Real talk. That's right. Because the prophet says, it's only, and I'm paraphrasing, we only know a small portion about the truth about man. Only a few know the truth about man.
Yeah, the half is only been told.
So we're gonna get into some of that tonight. Go ahead, Sheik.
Yeah, and this is the thing, right? And across the Moorish circuit, we continue to see behaviors that people try to fill the shoes of the Prophet Noble Dry Ali.
Okay.
However, we know and understand that he is a prophet, and not saying that we can't fill his shoes. Like Sheik Pennington Bay said, we need to follow his directions.
Right.
So he had organizational goals, and you have individuals who ask your grand sheik what his plan, or grand sheik is what their plan is.
Hmm.
Well, the reason that those individuals or individuals like that are doing things like that, as opposed to asking your grand sheik, why don't you come, or the individuals, why don't you come up with a plan? The
That's
reason
right.
that people do things like that is because they really don't have a plan, and they want you to ask your grand sheik, or they want you to give them ideas so that they can remix it and then demonstrate what it, the idea that you give them,
It's
right?
called gleaning for information.
Yeah, and that's why people want to debate all the time.
Hmm.
We don't debate, we communicate,
That's right.
right? Because the prophet mentions, he said that what we're supposed to do, we communicate it to the ignorant, and ignorant doesn't make a person look bad. Ignorant, sometimes I'm ignorant, meaning that I don't know certain
I don't
things.
know. I just don't know.
So I have to be educated. I
Right.
don't, and when I'm educated, or I'm learning something, I'm going to ask questions, and I'm not going to try to make a debate out of it,
Hmm.
or charge people money to come and see me go back and forth with somebody.
Right.
That's goofy. You
Right.
see what I'm saying?
That's right.
And it hasn't gotten the Moorish Science Temple of America anywhere,
Hmm.
right?
That's right.
And actually, it's a part of what our elders called the old ancient hatreds that's creeping, or that is still in the hearts and minds of the people, as opposed to the prophet Noble Drew Ali being in the hearts and mind of the people.
It's been passed
Because
down. It's been passed down, though.
yeah, and you know that time truly is declared out,
Right.
right? So um we are solution oriented, results driven.
Hmm.
um and our Supreme Grand Sheik has been that way, and encourages us to be solution oriented and results driven, not to just be trying to show somebody what we doing, or yeah, no, let's just do the work and find those who would like to work alongside with us.
That's right. That.
And and that's really, that's what it's all about, right?
Right.
So all that to say is that people need to also stop trying to read books like um you know, by the great scholars, which all of these individuals are great scholars, Dr.
Mhm.
Ben and
Okay.
uh, you know, all of them are great scholars, but you can't, and people, and this is also for people outside of the Moorish Science Temple. You can't take a book by Dr. Ben or Ivan Van Sertima and then try to interpret Noble Drew Ali's teachings.
Don't work that way. It ain't gonna fit, man.
And the reason being is because the reason that it's called the Moorish Science Temple of America is because science is a systematic branch of knowledge that can be tested and proven at any given time.
Right.
And this branch of knowledge that we're talking about is Moorish. And Prophet Noble Drew Ali is the founder of that branch of knowledge in the Americas.
That's right.
Okay. If anybody that's out there, Facebook Land, YouTube, or whatever the case may be, if you can find an organization that came before the Moorish Science Temple of America, that was lawfully, legally chartered and incorporated, then we'll honor that. If not, then they Johnny come latelys.
Exactly.
So also, when you look at, and not saying that these organizations don't, they, all we're saying is that we have a particular system, and you can't just take our system if you've never been to a legitimate Moorish science school
That's right.
and been taught by a teacher of what the Prophet Noble Drew Ali means when he says certain things. You're not going to be able to understand the science. You're going to read it, and you're going to think that he's talking about Jesus of 2,000 years ago.
Well, the stranger here, European.
Right.
Just being
And
real, just being honest. I know some Europeans watching, but that's
yeah,
what's been indoctrinated. That's what's been passed down.
right.
Many of our people here in the Western Hemisphere, as well as the East, they have a mindset of that's Jesus, and that's not. Come on.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you're going to think that we need to pick up Arab customs,
And we don't.
right?
We don't.
And we don't. Uh, or you're gonna think that the prophet was using one name when in all actuality it potentially was the newspapers that misspelled his name or was trying to deter the people, just like they try to do Dr. Sebi, and it's another Barbara O'Neill, right,
Hmm.
who are natural healers,
Natural healers.
right, and um telling people about different, things that they can do to heal themselves. That was the same thing that happened to the prophet Noble Ali, in the early aspects of the Moorish Science Temple, right?
Mm.
um so when you know and understand these particular things, you gotta ask questions as opposed to trying to act like people got one up on us, or
They don't know.
and one another in general, right?
Yeah.
That's the stuff that gotta be declared out. You
People
you know,
don't.
so
You don't know what you really don't know what the next person knows. You don't.
exactly.
You don't know. You know what I'm saying? And that's what we're running into. I'm only
Mhm,
going to speak a,
mhm.
little bit on it. It's a lot of grandstand and a lot of back
Yeah,
and
yeah,
forth
yeah.
of that nature. And to be honest with you,
Mhm.
as I stated before, on this channel, as well as just in general, how we operate, how we function, in our circle, we don't, we just allow that stuff to just roll off our back,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like water rolls off a duck's back. It
Right.
don't apply to us. We keep it moving.
And as at not only that, Mo, right, as as scholars, right, we're not saying that we're scholars in a sense of being braggadocious,
Hmm.
because there are things all the time that I study, and I gotta come and ask you, Mo, what you think about this,
Vice versa.
and vice versa, because we bounce off one another. And matter of fact, Sheikh Hashemiel, I
He's another.
call him and ask him for certain,
He's another one. Right.
Mo, did you have you ever read about this? Have you ever heard about this? And oftentimes he'll say, well, Sheikh, I've read this, but let me go and investigate it. So that's what it's all that's what more science is all about. Each
Right.
one teach one. Like, my wife has a wealth of information in reference to health. I knew a lot about it, but not nowhere near as much as she knows. And she's constantly telling me, Mo, why don't you do this, or why don't you read that, or
Mhm.
or check this out.
Right.
But that's how each one teach one, not um trying to brag like we got we broke the code on the Moorish Science Temple of America. Cause I'm not a prophet, Mo.
No, not at all.
Yeah. I mean, you
Me neither.
know, I I can only imagine what the prophets, Prophet Noble Ali and the prophets before him
Hmm.
went through when they come and was trying to, wake the people up.
That's right.
So yeah, just that little tidbit, right? So
Yes, sir.
now we have an understanding that 40 acres and a mule was not promised to every Asiatic or those individuals who like to say so-called black people. That was not they like to call themselves black. That was not offered to every Asiatic of America who had suffered slavery.
Exactly.
That's a misnomer. And when you get an opportunity, definitely go read about General Sherman's Special Field Order 15. It was a
Tecumseh
couple of
Sherman.
huh?
I said Tecumseh Sherman.
Oh, his name was Tecumseh, huh?
Right. Yeah.
Man, interesting.
Yeah.
So, um, you know, that's just a tidbit. So it you know, and not saying that reparations would not be good, but I'm saying that if my recommendation would be if anybody gets reparations, I suggest that they go to some type of economic training, or that they have some economic courses
Right.
in reference and community development before they hand out any money, because I think that money will be right back in the hands of
The
when I was coming up,
Reparations,
right?
right.
Some elders called the European Oyimbo. I think it would be back in Oyimbo's hand,
Right.
right? So praise the Lord. Now, also another question, an interactive question I would like to ask. Um, what year did people hear that slavery started? Or who was the first slave and things of this nature? I'm interested in hearing that because I heard a date and I'm just interested in hearing, or we, not just me, but we're interested in hearing what people have heard in reference to when slavery started, um, and the different narratives. If anybody would care to share.
So if you choose to, you can put your answer in the comment section. We see a couple of people in the chat. No one's answered at this time, but we're going to open it up for those who want to interact in the chat. We're also going to have a number in the next couple of episodes as well where you can call in, and that's oncoming. So if you just tune in, because I see it's 10, we currently have 10 on. I'm not sure of the app, but I know we have some watching on Facebook. We also have 2 Facebook channels, YouTube as well. All right. Deputy Sheik is joining. He'll say I would say in school I was taught 16, 19 in school.
Okay.
Sound
Yeah,
about right?
I heard that too. I
Yeah.
heard that too.
16, 19, 16, 20.
Hmm.
For between those 2 years in school, of course.
Right, right, right.
In school.
Well,
So
mhm.
if you're coming into the program, the name of this program is Back to the Basics. So we're just doing a little bit of housekeeping right now, and we're going to get into some articles and artifacts as well.
Mhm,
We'll
mhm.
pass it back to the Sheik, and she also said, Debbie Sheik's Jr. also said Jamestown, Virginia.
Okay, okay. Well, I heard the same thing too, and then I started doing a little deeper investigation, right? And this comes from after just I don't even know how I even found it at one time, but I found an interesting story about the first legal slave owner in America, and in the American colonies, that is, and he was from Virginia, and he was what we would call Asiatic, and he owned another Asiatic.
Right.
His name was Anthony Johnson, was the owner,
That's right.
and his slave was John Castle. And John Castle escaped, and Anthony Johnson wound up um, establishing a court case, and they caught John Castle. And as a result of that, around 1654, what wound up happening was Anthony Johnson created a situation in the courts where John Castle became a slave for life.
Mm-hmm. That's
And and
perpetual.
this was about 1654, and thereafter that condition, we know and understand that it started matriculating to um the child, well, the mother via, excuse me, it matriculated to the mother, and then that condition also matriculated to the child, because after that particular time, the child inherited the mother's condition
That's right.
according to the law.
That's right.
And this is how now we are seeing some of the forms of perpetual slavery. So it may be some interesting research to look at Anthony Johnson. And now, because the story is becoming a little more popular, beware, some people would try to say that it's a myth and things of this nature. But when I learned about it, this was like in, man, this was like 2005 or so.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't nowhere. It was legitimate information out there, and man, it blew my mind. I was like, "What?" Right? So, and I'm not blaming Anthony Johnson for that particular situation. I'm
Right.
just saying, we know, we see and understand that it just wasn't a these terms black and white did not just apply to people's skin tone.
That's right.
Yeah. So something interesting to investigate. Something interesting to investigate.
Islam.
Islam.
Islamism. So let's go back to a few points, right?
Uh-huh.
I know we hit on the point of the matter of reparations,
Okay.
which we don't support. Well, I'm gonna say
No,
I don't support.
I don't support it either.
I don't support it. I definitely don't support it in the sense of what I'm seeing. All right, we got Deputy Sheik is joining ill with Latin, have Latin language, speaking some Latin in the in the comment,
What's a securita venturum law?
passed down from generation to generation.
Okay, all right. That's the
Yeah.
first time I even heard it. Or
Brain shooting, man.
thank you. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Me
write that down.
too. So yeah, for those who are tuning in, right? So just coming in, we were talking about, and Chief Lonsby just made mention of Anthony Johnson, the first reported so-called Negro slave owner, Asiatic slave owner,
Hmm.
at that time. And what you'll find is, as I mentioned before, we're going to get into specifically that this wasn't like it wasn't like a separate incident, so to speak.
Right.
Throughout history or throughout I'm going to talk about my experience.
Hmm.
My
Hmm.
experience prior to coming into the Moorish Science Temple of America, prior to being introduced to the teachings of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And the truth about my true history, I always thought that, as you mentioned earlier, that the institution of slavery was based solely on shade.
Hmm.
And what
Hmm.
you'll find is, as you continue to investigate and you research, you're going to find that there were individuals who were slaveholders who looked just like you and I.
That's right.
When I say you and I, I'm not just talking about complexion, but I'm
Hmm.
talking about you had individuals who were dark, medium, and light olive who owned not only other Asiatics here in America,
Europeans too,
but
right?
also you own Europeans as well.
That's right.
They owned Europeans as far back as the inception of what this country is known as. They actually owned Europeans prior to the inception of what we know
Absolutely.
as the United States of America. They owned it
Absolutely.
when you had commonwealths, when you had provinces like Maryland. Prior to Maryland becoming a state, it was a
Hmm.
province. You know what I'm saying? And what you'll find is, if you just do a little bit of deep diving and research, do some archival history, you're going to
Hmm.
find that you're going to see explicitly where you find Asiatics who are indentured servants, of course, but then you're also going to find Europeans who were indentured servants, as well as individuals who were owned in slavery. And we're
Hmm.
not talking
Hmm.
about perpetual slavery, which you made mention of,
Hmm.
mother to child, but what we see is individuals being owned to a degree, having to work to a degree in the finance, going back to the Asiatic and European likewise. So it was really about business. Even to this day, slavery, which is being perpetuated in the form of prison industrial system and
Yeah,
things of that
that's right.
nature, it is still a business. If you don't think it's a business, I'm an educator. I worked in the public school system. I work in the non-pub now, and many of the desks, the lockers, the boards, every single detail that you can find where there's some type of material that the students use. That material, 9 times out of 10, it comes from a prison.
Hmm.
It comes from cheap and free labor. I just wanted to bring that point out. But with the artifacts, right? So let's get into
Hmm.
it. So the first thing I want to do, I want to draw your attention to one document in particular. In this document, just so you know, we're not blowing smoke, but we're actually going to provide proof of tax. This document is a document that we had for a minute. It was actually published twice. One time it was published by Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who
Okay.
came up with the miseducation of the Negro, so-called Negro. And I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger so everybody can see it. Give me 1 second. My apologies. I want to make sure that it is visible. Let's see how we do this. Expand it out, maximize it. All right, so the document right here that we have, and I'm not going to go through the whole document because it's pretty long, but I want to show people, as you can see, um, dealing with primary sources and secondary sources. This document, and I'm going to use so-called for this. The document is called "Free So-Called Negro Slaves and So-Called Free Negro Owners of Slaves in the United States in 1830."
Hmm.
So, of course, we know the prophet gives us a historical timeline in which slavery existed in this country, known as the United States of America,
Hmm.
1779 to 1865.
That's
This
right.
falls between that time span. And the prophet, being so masterful in what he does and demonstrates, he uses the term slaveholders
Hmm.
in Acts 6. And when you look
Hmm.
at slaveholders, he doesn't make a distinction between a European, an Asiatic slaveholder. He just
That's
said
right.
these names were given to slaveholders, talking about Negro, Black, Colored, and Ethiopian.
Right.
Because one thing that we want our viewers and listeners and those who are tuning in to understand that slavery was just as much as an institution that the person who was the slaveholder was attached to the hip to the person who was considered chattel.
Absolutely.
It was a lock and key. Like I'm locked into you, you locked into me, and this is what's happening right now. And then likewise, that term Negro, which is a term that deludes of slavery, that term itself was a legal term at that time. Even though we know and understand that there is no
Oh,
Negro, there's no Black person, no African American, etc. No matter how much they want to say it, put in legislation. This is what the word or the term was today, and it's still a term that's used
hmm.
by people. But let's get into this. So
Hmm.
it says, and I'm gonna just peruse through a little bit. It says, free Negro owners of slaves in the United States in 1830. It says, taking up the study of the free so-called Negro in the United States, the research department of the Association for the Study of So-called Negro Life and History
Hmm.
decided to make this statistical report as to the heads of families, their ownership of slaves, and social relations with so-called whites. I'm gonna say Europeans. The aim was to facilitate the further study of this neglected group. Most of these people have been forgotten. For persons supposedly well informed in history are surprised to learn today that about half a million, almost 1/7 of so-called Negroes of this country were free prior to the emancipation of 1865. This blows a hole totally into what we understand, where people sit there and say, "Oh, my such and such was enslaved by." No, 500,000. That's not a small percentage of people. 500,000 people are already free in this country. So then the question becomes, well, what were they doing, right? Let's
Hmm.
go back to it. It says, these names will therefore serve as a link between the past and present and will thereby lessen the labor of research in this field. Now, let's go back to this association right here, right? So, the Association for the Study of So called, I'm going to say Negro Life and History,
Uh-huh.
wasn't a European institution. That was
Right.
an institution that was actually spearheaded by Carter G. Woodson.
Carter G.
So
Woodson. That's right.
somebody who may say, well, they're coming with a biased form or they're demonstrating something to kind of show a jaded view. No, Carter G. Woodson himself, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, he was a scientist. And
Hmm.
what he did was the he studied the life. He also studied the mannerisms and patterns of Asiatic people here in America. Not saying that he wasn't paid by those institutions, but he was studying it and he was trying to make sense of this part of history that had been long forgotten, right? Now, we
Right.
don't see these things when we look at certain movies. When you look at, and I'm not trying to be facetious, but when you look at movies like Amistad, when you look at movies like Roots, which they showed me in sixth grade when I was at Calverton Elementary, when
Uh-huh.
you look at all these movies, they always show a one-sided view of somebody getting their foot put in there behind, excuse my terminology, you being brought over here from Africa. And I had to clear it up to some of the youths today that that's not true. And people may say, well, what you saying, brother Jonah? You don't believe in the transatlantic slave trade? Not to the degree in which it's been perpetuated in history. I don't believe that 2.5 million people were brought over here in vessels. I just don't believe it based off of the historical view and of what we know what was happening in Europe, and also um, just the frequency of
Hmm.
these and things of that nature. But
Hmm.
let's get back to this, right? It says there are several reasons for selecting the census records of 1830. So he selected the census records of 1830. In the first place, the earlier reports do not give as much information as the census of 1830. At that time, moreover, the free so-called Negroes had reached about their highest mark as a distinct class. So they were their own separate class. This reaction set which set in the century restricted their freedom, in many cases expelled them from the South. So I'll give you an example, right?
Uh-huh.
My family, well, specifically my grandmother's family, on my grandmother's side, they were free persons in Virginia, specifically the part of Virginia known as Westmoreland, Richmond County, Virginia. And in that part, many of my family members, they found themselves being free people in Virginia. Some of them had to make an ultimatum and a decision. Some of the decision was, hey, you can stay in the state, but there are certain things you can do and you can't do. Others, they migrated to Maryland, they migrated to New Jersey. Some of them went further north, as far north as like New York, etc. But Virginia was one of the places where you ultimately, like you were mentioning earlier, when you're
Mm-hmm.
dealing with that institution, hey, if you're a free person, no, you got to get up out of the state,
Mm-hmm.
because you're gonna put the idea in the minds of those who weren't at that time that this is something that is achievable or
That's
approachable,
right.
right? All right, which it was to a degree, but there was a lot of loopholes with that. All right, so let's go further. It says this track reached its highest point between 1830 and 1835. Most of the free so-called Negroes in the North, 1830, had been there for some years. So that's what I was just mentioning. People had
Mm-hmm.
migrated prior, and then it says, and I'm gonna go back, go down a little bit more, and then I'm gonna stop and we're gonna look at some of these records. It says the census records show that the majority of the so-called Negro owners of slaves were such from the point of the view of philanthropy. In many instances, the husband purchased the wife and vice versa, because they would
Mm-hmm.
purchase their families out of the condition. The slaves belonging to such family members were few compared with large numbers found among the Europeans on the developed plantations. It says slaves of so-called Negroes, in some cases children of a free father who had purchased his wife. And then if we go down, because you mentioned South Carolina, so let's go down
That's
just a
right.
little bit. It says some of these husbands were not anxious to liberate their wives immediately. They considered it advisable to put them on probation for a few years, and if they did not find them satisfactory, they would sell their wives as other slaveholders disposed of so-called Negroes. So this is
Mm-hmm.
to give you an example. How on earth can a person sell their wife? This is when you look at the Moorish Science Temple of America, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, and the fact that the Prophet said that he had to uplift fallen humanity. When you look at the cover of our 101 questions, and you see the condition of the sister, brothers, man, to be honest with you, at that time and even in this time, they're guilty of putting sisters in that condition. Who would want to own their wife and not liberate her? So these are things that we have to really think about, man. But
Yeah.
it says it right here. It says, for example, and then we're gonna go to the record so you can see how many people, for our viewers. A so-called Negro shoemaker in Charleston, South Carolina, purchased his wife for $700, but on finding her hard to please, he sold her a few months after for $750, getting $50 by the transaction. And
Mm.
you got a couple of other instances, Virginia, so on and so forth. But you can, if you want to, and I'm talking to the viewers, you can look this document up. All you have to do is type in or Google free so-called Negro slave owners in the United States in 1830, and you'll see it. Now, this right here is the journal log. So as you can see, you're going to see the state, and there's various different states. You have Alabama. Then you have the age limit between the people, the total amount, and those names you're seeing right there with the surname as well as the first name. And this is going to go into a later episode in which we're going to debunk this whole idea of the surname being the so-called slave name. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali never taught us that our surnames were slave names. And you find Moorish Americans saying, oh, your surname is your slave name. No, that's not true. That's something we really need to investigate. All right. So Alabama, all right, you got Arkansas, you got northern states, Connecticut, which you
Man,
see West
Delaware.
Delaware.
Mm-hmm.
Let's keep it going. We just gonna go down and look. You got the District of Columbia, and look at some of the surnames: Baltimore, Proctor, Glasgow, Brooke. These are all Asiatics. Dyson, Colored. This man's last name is Colored.
Mm.
Another one. It's a couple of them with that last name. And then some of these names are names that people still have. Florida, Georgia. Let's go to Maryland. Let's see what Maryland has. Since we live in Maryland, since we're from Maryland, let's see what Maryland has. Kentucky. I'm just scrolling right now. Louisiana. Look at all those. And these are places when
Man.
you look at all those Asiatics. when you really look at this demonstration, you really have to question what Spielberg and a lot of these other people who created these movies in the past, what were they really trying to press on the minds of our people? Because when you look at it, no, it's not. We're not saying that the institution was solely on our people. No, not at all. But when you look at it, it was all about financial gain, just like it is today. You still have people amongst us who are out for financial gain. They're out for earthly salvation. And as a result of that, they'll sell their brother, their sister, their mother, their cousin, auntie, even themselves for a quick dollar. Now, this is Maryland. And then we're going to move on. This man's last surname is Black.
Oh,
Allegheny County, Anne Arundel County,
right,
City of Baltimore. You got the different wards because Baltimore at one point in time we were in wards before we were in districts.
right,
Ward 1, 2, 3. These are all Asiatics who are owning, and that's enough. Baltimore got about 3 pages. I mean
wow,
Maryland, 3 pages. Look, this person's middle. I mean, this person is identified as Negro.
right. Wow,
So that shows you Negro, Black, and colored is much more than just this person owns you, etc. It's a condition, it's a mental condition. And this is why the Prophet Noble Dread was getting us out of not only identify ourselves and calling ourselves those names, but letting us know that look, this thing is bigger than what we can imagine. Go ahead,
yeah,
Shay.
and this is one of the reasons now we look at the terminology. The Negro problem is only being solved as it can,
That's right.
right? Because if you just surface read, right? Because and it's nothing. I'm not taking no shots at nobody, but when you just read a thing one time, that's one thing. But then when you go do a deeper investigation and really think like and question like, all right, what is this saying to me? And you go and
Mm,
you look at certain aspects of what the prophet is saying, it leads you to something a little deeper. And you like, man, this is deeper than I can imagine,
that's
right?
right.
And to back, and my wife says on certain city bills, it still mentions wards,
That's right. That's
right?
true.
So, things come from a evolutionary uh point of view. So when you go look at something one time, then you got to go look at it again, and you got to go look at it again. You got to take a few notes, and it's going to lead you to a place where you would truly be amazed, right?
That's right.
So, and let the truth be told, I mean, we could look at this in every major city. In every major city, you see Asiatics,
Mm.
or some cities that where Asiatics in charge. I mean, they still like slaveholders because they didn't sold us out,
No,
right?
more and more. And I'm not speaking radical.
Right.
We gonna call a
I'm
spade,
just
strike a
saying.
strike. You don't want to say it, but I'm gonna say it. We here,
I'm
we in the
saying
city,
you
and we
work
see it. It's slave holding right now, man. And they've been
slaveholders,
doing it.
and I mean, and you look at the condition of Baltimore, man. My wife and I we ride certain places, and we like what?
No, it's
Yeah.
third world, bro.
Oh,
I had
third
blocks
world.
in my community. We don't have street lights, Mo. Like street
Wow.
lights. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, yo, we like Mo. We've been in 2025. We don't have street lights. All types of things. It's crazy. It's crazy. But go ahead.
Yeah. So, to parallel off of what you were saying, as far as Asiatics owning other Asiatics, I mean, you can also go to the Library of Congress, or you can search the internet for a record um, called "They Were White and They Were Slaves: The
Mm,
Untold History of the Enslavement of we gonna say Europeans in early America."
that's
That's by
right.
Michael A. Hoffman. And
Mm,
this is how some Europeans or so-called white people try to hide their enslavement, and they hide it under indentured servitude.
that's right.
Right. So man, this thing is deeper than we can imagine. And now we know and understand that why the prophet is telling us about what our race, what our nationality is, because we know and understand that the race that's on some of these applications and government paperwork, we see and understand that these are based off of a sociological construct, which and you study in sociology, you will find out that race is a pseudo concept.
Right.
It's not real. It's sociological, right?
That's right.
And so yeah, Mo, praise Allah. This is man, Prophet Noble Drali is truly the man of the hour.
That's right. Let's hit on some more points, man.
Yeah, yes, sir.
And we ain't picking. We just gonna show it. So I guess like the question because we're doing questions, surveys, etc. People again, concept. People throw out the concept of reparations. We're gonna go there. Then we're gonna go to this Freedmen's Bureau on abandoned lands, and then we're gonna hit on that 14th Amendment real quick. We're gonna
Yeah,
go.
and I just want to clear. I'm not saying that I want people to get. I'm saying if you're going to give out reparations, please send people to class
But
to
the thing
let them
about
know
it,
to teach people what to do with the money.
but do
You
people
understand?
know? I guess the question I have: do people know? Because this is a it's mind boggling when I hear these things, man. Like I
Correct.
know here in Baltimore, in Maryland, they put legislation down to create like a fund for reparations by way of. Because in here they have the legalization of medicinal marijuana, etc.
Okay.
I'm just like come on, man, this is crazy. But exactly, Chickens Velocity, they're gonna blow it.
Blow it.
But check this out, right? I'm gonna share this. I'm gonna share this because the question I have, like, do people think that reparations weren't paid out to Asiatics before, or people in general?
No,
Like, it's
I think they do, but that's how we got DC,
here we
right?
go. Let's show
That's
them.
how we got. That's how we
It's,
got
it's,
the District of Columbia.
it's more. It's more examples. So
Right.
watch this.
And look, people want to talk about they get on Instagram, right? And they get
Mhm.
on these other platforms and they want to talk about how the District of Columbia or the United States is only a certain amount of
Certain
square
amounts of
miles because
miles,
of the
right?
District of Columbia. Well, why they don't talk about the Asiatics in Washington, D.C. receiving representation? That's
Come
why on
on,
their license plates right now it says taxation without
our
representation.
representation.
You understand? Because it's deeper than it just being the United States. And let the truth be told, that flag is George Washington ain't even his real name,
Not at
but
all.
it's named after him. You understand what I'm saying? But when you go a little deeper and you look at DC's flag, you're going to find out who
Hmm.
that person's family really is,
That's right.
because that's his crest.
That's a
That's
crest.
the flag they fly in Washington, D.C.
That's right.
But the only reason that I'm familiar or we are familiar is because of the teachings of Prophet Noble Ali, right?
Islam. That's right.
Yeah, praise Allah.
Praise Allah. So watch this. Let's check this out. All right, what we have in front of us look a little shaky, but I think everybody can see it. This right here, this document. Let me see. Let's maximize it a little bit more. All right. What we have in front of us is coming from Sacramento State University, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that there's been a big push, or now the push is kind of moving away from it. But this is coming from Sacramento State University, Division of Inclusive Excellence, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because when I found this, it was a historical worldview timeline of reparations. It says actions taken by the United States and abroad at the federal, state, institutional, and community level.
Mm-hmm.
I found that very interesting because we know and understand that the prophet, he teaches us, first of all, to deal with local government, state government, federal government, and then eventually, we take our role in the affairs of men as citizens, and we are, we deal with our brothers and sisters, or we deal with society, humanity universally,
Mm-hmm.
right? Well, watch this. So, Asiatics want reparations. So, this is Dr. King, right? Part of his speech, one of the part they love to talk about him being to the mountaintop, etc. But he said, "I refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. It says individual, organization, and institutional reparations. Let's go right here, 1783, right?
Mm-hmm.
It says 1779 to 1865 during the time of slavery. Now, this is outside of the U.S., but you made mention earlier, Sheik, right?
Mm-hmm.
The fact that slavery was perpetually in most of the states at that time, they used slavery and made it perpetual from mother to child, right?
That's right.
Check this out. So it says Belinda Sutton, also Royal or Royale, was born in modern day Ghana. All right, that's what they're saying.
Mm.
1713 and sold into slavery as a child to Isaac Royal in Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
After 50 years of enslavement, she was made a free woman when Royal fled to Nova Scotia. Sutton petitioned the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for a pension. In 1783, she was awarded a pension of £15, 12 shillings to be paid from the estate of Isaac Royal. So she actually sued the person she was sold into slavery from or to, and from there, I don't know why it looks like that. Let me exit out because it looked a little choppy. It's pink. I want to make
No,
sure everybody can
it
see it.
wasn't pink on else. Which the actual letter or the
No,
power?
when I had it up here, I'm gonna see it. Let me see it again. Let me pull it up one more time. So it's not pink on your end?
No, it wasn't pink on. Nope.
All right, praise the Lord. To the viewers, does it look pink? You type in yes or no. I'm gonna zoom in too so people can see it. Give me 1 second. Let us know if it's coming in clear. If it's not clear, I'm gonna make it brief on this because I don't want to belabor the point. All right, let's go down. All right, this one right here is the Merchants Committee. This is another example. Now that was
Okay.
Asiatic, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, wasn't American born, but it was Asiatic. All right, Merchants Committee, 1863. That's the same year we just was talking about, right?
Right.
1863. Over 4 days in July, mobs of European New Yorkers, or so-called white New Yorkers, terrorized Asiatics, or so-called blacks, by roaming the streets of City Hall. This is in New York. City Hall to Gramercy Park to past 40th Street, setting fires to buildings and killing people. The overall death toll is estimated between 100 and 1,000. Immediately after the riots, the European merchants of New York combined forces to raise money to care for the injured, repair the damaged property, and support the legal and employment needs of the community's Asiatic people. The shopkeepers raised over 40,000, equivalent to $825,000 a day. You also have the Manifesto of 1969. That's SNCC. But let's look at this one. Now, the bankers. We got J.P. Morgan and Chase. They set up a $5 million scholarship fund to Asiatic people or Asiatic youth because they wanted to apologize for their ties to the slave trade.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You also have reparations by religious institutions. Now, mind you, these are all Asiatics.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing right now. I haven't seen a European yet receiving money, right?
Right.
Now watch this. Reparations by religious institutions. Catholic nuns of the Society of the Sacred Heart introduced a scholarship fund to benefit so-called African Americans, we're going to say Asiatics, students at their school in Louisiana, along with a memorial to the enslaved 150 persons who labored to build the schools. In the footnote, the source is right there. It's from R.L. Swan's 2019, The Nuns Who Bought and Sold Human Beings. The New York Times, Society of Sacred Heart, hopes for understanding and reconciliation as it delves into the history of slave ownership. 2019, the Virginia Theological Seminary has earmarked $1.7 million to pay reparations to the descendants of Asiatics who were enslaved to work on their campus. The first payments of $2,100 to 15 recipients was distributed. So they already received it. They've been receiving it since after the pandemic, 2021. Princeton Theological Seminary. These are seminary schools. 27 million committed to various initiatives to recognize how it benefited from Asiatic slavery. This is the largest monetary commitment by educational institution. And then last but not least, and I'm not going to belabor the point, and if you want a copy of this document, all you have to do is email us at moorishsensemedia@gmail.com. A convention of the Episcopal Diocese of New York voted to allocate $1.1 million to initiate a reparations program. So this whole idea in this Georgetown University as well. Um, it's been an ongoing issue. However, that doesn't solve. It's not solving the so-called Negro problem.
That's
And
right.
likewise, it's only a band-aid to a proverbial gunshot wound. So
Hmm.
when I see people, demonstrate, and then the thing about it is not disrespecting anybody from California, but if my memory serves me correct, California was one of the states that came into the union in later years.
Yeah, yeah, because when you really start digging into California, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's out west,
That's
and
right.
there were a lot of free Asiatics in California, right?
Right.
Um, and Moors, they talk about California, or people talk about how California was named after Queen Khalifa, which, okay,
Mm.
but they don't talk about, you ever heard of the Vulcan Blazers, Mo?
No.
So the Vulcan Blazers, I always used to wonder. So it's like a club. It's supposed to be Asiatic, or they use so-called black firefighters.
Okay.
They're called the Vulcan Blazers. So if you go a little deeper, there's a book, right, that was published, and it's called the Negro Trailblazers, and
Mm.
it talks about California, and how the Queen of California and her army of women were called over to Turkey to
Mm.
fight.
Okay.
All right. This was it's some history, and I misplaced the thought of the name. The next time we get on the show, I'll actually have the name, because I have a copy of the record
Mm.
on PDF file.
Okay.
But it gives you a identification of the Asiatics that lived out west, right? And they show these westerns and try to make it seem like that the Europeans were the first cowboys, when
Mm.
we were the first cowboys,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
And actually, that terminology cowboy, they it was made um in reference to be derogatory.
Mm-hmm.
The Europeans were not called cowboys; they were called something else. But
Slide.
we were the first, we the Asiatics out there, and then of course, when you start getting into gang culture and
Right.
you start talking about the dances and things that they do, you'll see um,
Mm.
that in all actuality, it comes from the Aboriginal Moors that were, out in that area,
Right.
and in various other parts of the country,
Some of their
So
names come from those too. Some of
yeah,
their street names. Yep. The street
yeah.
names as well.
So man, my wife and I, for her Earth Day, we
Mm-hmm.
were in Miami,
Okay.
right? And we would just, when you really start looking up the tribe of the Miami tribe,
That's right.
and you'll start to see why they wear their locks a certain way in Miami, right?
Wicks.
Wicks,
The Wicks.
right?
That's right.
Yeah. So because that's what the ancient Moors wore down there, right?
Right.
Um, and it's just so much, man. The prophet, he brought us, when he said he brought us everything that it takes to save a nation. Now all we got to do is take it and save ourselves, and that starts with you know we well, we've been going around because of Supreme Grand Sheik Clarence Prather.
So
He's always had a open door policy to work with other Moorish Americans.
that's right.
Um, and that history that we have, it's not a history to be separate.
Mm-mm.
It's a history that we just learn from. We can't continue to harp on this person did this, and with it, we can't continue to harp on that, because if
Oh,
we
we're
do,
learning from them, Mo.
we're gonna stay. We're gonna be marching in the deserts like the Israelites they did for 40 years.
That's right.
Yeah. So
It's a learning curve, man. We learn from the examples of others, what to do and what not to do.
that's right.
So
Absolutely.
you
And,
can't
and
Can't change the past, man. You
Yeah,
can only learn from it.
and we can't stay stuck at a certain master.
That is.
Uh, or I mean, regardless of because different. Like for example, um, my my older children, because I
Hmm.
had 5 children in total.
That's right.
My older children might tell a narrative about me that my younger children
Don't know
might
now.
tell a whole different narrative
That's right, because they see you in different stages.
because I was young and goofy when my first set of children were born.
That's right.
I just was.
Right.
And as they grew, I learned how to be a, a father, a better father. You know
Islam.
what I'm saying?
I get you.
And as a result of that, my younger children see a different version of me. So that's the same thing with the Moorish Science Temple of America.
Hmm.
All these old letters, and that it's good to have them. Not
Hmm.
nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Good to have them. Good to study them. Um, Good to read the old newspaper articles and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
at the end of the day, it's still going to be somebody's interpretation or what somebody told you.
Right.
And the prophet says, "What man knows not by being told."
Oh, that's right.
So the only way that you can uh is to exercise or demonstrate is to be what you know.
What you know. That's right.
Yeah, man. So I just praise Allah, man, for and we all have shortcomings, and
Yeah, we do.
but
It's a,
but,
it's a learning experience.
those things can be worked on. You
Right.
see what
If
I'm
you
saying?
choose to, if you choose to, though,
Yeah, yeah.
you
Well,
have to
that's
be
true
willing to
too.
work
Because
on it.
guess what? If you want to stay in your comfort zone,
By
praise
all means.
Allah,
By
we're
all
gonna
means.
love you just the same. But we just ask that you keep it moving, and when we see you, we'll try to gently nudge you and encourage you to change. But
Mhm.
it ain't nothing that we gonna be fussing, hollering, screaming about.
That's right.
Yeah, we'll pray for you, so you can change. But praise Allah, Islam.
Praise Allah. And I'm glad you said that point. All right. So we talked about the reparations demonstration. We also covered,
Oh
you know, some
yeah,
housekeeping.
one
Go
more
ahead.
thing, one
Go
more
ahead.
thing, Mo.
Go ahead.
I apologize. I
Come
ain't
on.
mean.
Go ahead, man. You doing your
But
thing.
the reason we use things like from universities, uh these are college students, right, and professors who um take, or at least we think that they take the educational process very seriously,
Right.
and they go and they take their time, especially students who are trying to earn a degree. And both you and myself went through this particular process. Who are trying to earn the title of bachelors,
Yeah.
associates of arts,
Right.
bachelors of science, masters of science, masters of arts, or even
Doctor.
doctor of
Yeah.
philosophy, whatever degree that you're going for, or
Right.
even if it's a certificate.
Right.
They are digging to find these particular first-hand account sources, um, information, statistical data, and they are they are actually putting this information together to present it because in certain instances these are projects that they had to do in order for them to get the grade to be able to earn whatever degree that they're trying to earn. So
Dissertations.
yeah, dissertations. With also forget the other type of project that they call them, exhibition projects,
Projects. Right.
and a number of different things that they utilize, but
Right.
they take it very seriously and they put their blood, sweat, and tears in it. It's not just a person who
Do something together.
nothing against the person who's just just might go and do some research or find one or two things, but these individuals have to find like you know um uh 40 or more different sources. They have to do a annotated bibliography.
Right.
They have to write a abstract, which is
Right.
the beginning of the paper, to explain what the paper is going to be about.
Mhm.
So
They're
and
not laymen. They're not lay. They're not lay scholars.
Right.
Students.
Yeah, they're scholar practitioners,
That's right.
which is an actual thing, and they take it very seriously. And also, they pay lots of money to go to some of these schools to get this particular information, or the information is there, but they pay to be taught how to search for this information, how to write, um, how to put your information in a scholarly form to be published in a journal, and so on and so forth. Yeah,
That's
so
right.
I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, man, we pay finance to do that research.
Man.
Yeah.
So
Honestly, you too, Sheikh Penitent Bay. We
yeah,
appreciate you too, Mo.
yes, praise Allah.
All right, so we're gonna go to. I know in the Great Book of the Resurrection, it's a European gentleman by the name of Trumbull, right?
Okay.
I want to go to Trumbull, and then we're going to go to the Prophet. We're going to look at the Divine One by the Prophet of the Nations, page 3, 14th Amendment. And I think we might be, I don't think we're done yet, but I think we're getting close to that
Yeah,
mark.
yeah, yeah.
So
And we gonna come we'll come back with this with a I guess a follow-up series to
yeah,
talk about some more of this stuff.
right. All right. So what we have right here is maximizing. I'm gonna zoom in. Now, I'm pretty sure a lot of people have heard of Freedmen's Bureau, but zoomed in a little bit too much. And I know that again, with the whole idea, the concept of this reparations demonstration people were talking about, a lot of people were actually gravitating to. And I'm not speaking radical. Prophet teachers not to speak radical in the organized group. When they're going toward this persuasion of a so-called Freedmen's Bureau, the
Hmm.
Freedmen's Bureau of Abandoned Lands is what the original name was. But what you'll find if you do a deep dive in an investigation, this institution was never supposed to be long term. It was
Hmm.
actually supposed to be a short term fix. It was created by the form of Reconstruction, in which the government was reconstructed, and ultimately the outcome or the trajectory in which Asiatic people were supposed to receive um, full rights, full autonomy, full citizenship, etc., that was circumvented as well. And we're going to
Hmm.
see two instances. So the first one I want to hit on is this Freedmen's Bureau, and I think it might be large enough. Let me see. Maybe it'll make it a little bit larger. All right, I think that's good. That's good right there. We're not going to go too far into this, but we're going to just look at it. Go back. All right. So you got the Freedmen's Bureau. This is a speech of Trumbull. I'm not going to go through the whole speech, but I'm just going to point out some points, and hopefully it sticks. This can be found on the Library of Congress's page. If you type in Freedmen's Bureau and you type in Trumbull speech 1866, so this is 1 year after close of the Civil War. It's January 19th. This is not even a year after. This is actually months after. It says,
Okay.
the Senate as in committee of the whole, having under consideration of the bill to enlarge the powers of the Freedmen's Bureau. So let me give you a background on Trumbull. Trumbull himself was an abolitionist, but he was also what we know as a radical reconstructionist. What
Okay.
you find is with the radical reconstructions, some people have, the mindset of these people being I guess, helpful. But in all actuality, when you look at what they were trying to um, push or force, they were
Hmm.
trying to force a change without a gradual measure in which Asiatics were not only being taught citizenship or taught the quality and characteristics of what true citizenship is, but also the process in which they're able to sustain themselves.
Hmm.
Because again, on the flip side, you had an institution in which people own people. It really didn't matter in regards to what shade the person was, but in some instances, you found people who at one point in time were liberated, staying in the same space because they didn't know what to do after it was declared that this institution was done or it was over with.
Hmm.
In all actuality, it wasn't over. So let's go to Trumbull. So it says, Mr. Trumbull said, Mr. President, he's talking about Johnson. I feel incumbent on me to reply to some of the arguments presented. Excuse me, now he's not talking to the president. not talking to John, he's talking to the president of Senate. He said, by the senator of Indiana against the bill, many of the positions he has assumed we found upon examination have no foundation. In fact, he argued against provisions not contained in the bill. So the bill is this Freedmen's Bureau and Abandoned Lands, right?
Mm-hmm.
He argued also as if he's entirely forgetful of the condition of the country of the Great War, which we have passed. And let's get into the meat of this. It says, now, sir, what was the object of the Freedmen's Bureau and why was it established? It was established to look after a large class of people who, as a result of the war, had been thrown upon the hands of the government and must have perished but for its fostering, care, and protection. Does the senator mean to deny the power of the government to protect people under such circumstances? So when you talk about the protection under certain circumstances, you're talking about a specific class of citizens, and you're not talking about individuals who have true American citizenship, but they have a specific protective class at this time.
Mm-hmm.
And the Prophet Noble Dry Ali, he lets us know that when you're dealing with that 14th Amendment, in that 15th Amendment, it was no need for it. There was no need for the application of these two amendments for the salvation of our people. Because if you go back to the original Constitution, and
Mm-hmm.
you find that Constitution, study and investigate it, you'll find that it says that all men were declared free and equal. Never been changed. So as a result of this, what's the reason and what's the purpose of this Freedmen's Bureau, these Reconstruction Acts, and all these different types of legislation to attempt to make a person equal when all actuality, again, nobody can change that. Nobody can change man from his descendant nature unless his powers extend beyond the great God Allah. And
That's
I'm
right.
talking in a specific science here because the thing is, we're not mixing and mingling, and we're not remixing the prophet's teachings, but we're making it applicable because when you're dealing with the prophet Noble Drew Ali's teachings, he's giving us a historical timeline. So we have to look at what was happening in the timeline in which the prophet gave us.
That's right.
Here's what happened shortly after as well. This is what it means to be, as you mentioned earlier, She, a good practitioner, and pretty much, really honestly, a good practitioner of studying more science.
Mm-hmm.
It can't be one way. So let's go back. All right, so it says, excuse me, let me zoom in. Move over here, and we're gonna go right here. Zoom out just a little bit. It says, all right, the senator must also, excuse me, I'm gonna go up and zoom up a little bit. It says the senator must often have voted for appropriations to protect other classes of people under like circumstances. So for the viewers, quite not question, but just investigate during your time. How many civil rights bills have been passed by this government, and how many of them actually stuck, where they actually held weight, where they actually
Mm-hmm.
did something for the people at that time, and
Mm-hmm.
even in this current time? And why is it that you still find many of these issues people are faced with if this was the law of the land?
Mm-hmm.
It says, whenever in history of the government there has been thrown upon it a helpless population which must starve and die before its care, the government has never failed to provide for them. At this very session of the House of Congress, have voted $500,000 to feed and clothe Indians. We did not hear the senators voice an opinion to that appropriation. What are the facts? It is stated by the Indian agents that the so-called Indian tribes of Arkansas, a part of whom had joined the rebel armies, talking about the Confederacy, and some Union armies have been driven from their country, that their property had been destroyed, and now the conflict of arms has ceased. They had nothing to live upon during the winter. They would have encroached upon the so-called white settlements unless provisions had been made for them, and would rob, plunder, and murder the inhabitants nearest. Talking about the Europeans.
Mm-hmm.
And Congress was called upon to appropriate money. That sounds like reparations to me. To buy them food, clothing, and we did. We did it for the rebels. We did it for the traders, and we are not bound to do it. So let's go down. All right, we'll go over because we're gonna go over it and see what the purpose of this was, and we're gonna wrap it up. Give me 1 second. All right. So it says it is not the first time that money has been appropriated to take care of the destitute and the suffering of the so-called African. Let me zoom in. It's a little light. For many years, it has been that whenever persons of African descent were brought to our shores with the intention of reducing them to slavery, the government should, if possible, rescue and restore them to their native land and have appropriated hundreds of thousands of dollars on the subject. Can anyone deny the right to do it? Sir, humanity as well as constitutional obligations suppressed the slave trade required it. And you can look at that in regards to when it was abolished in this country in the early 1800s. So now the people, relieved by their action from the control of their masters who supplied their wants, that they might have their services have relied upon them for the assistance till they can provide for themselves. This is the part I wanted everybody to see. It says, the Freedmen's Bureau is not intended as a permanent institution. It is only designed to aid the helpless, ignorant, and unprotected people until they can provide for them and take care of themselves. And I stop right there. So it was never supposed to be a so-called Freedmen's Bureau movement. There was never supposed to be something that was ongoing. This was a result of Reconstruction. And when you study and investigate the Great Book of the Resurrection, you're going to find that the Grand Chief Timothy G. Dingley, he makes mention of something known as a great conspiracy taking place. And that's something that we still find happening to this day.
That's right.
And then the last part I want to hit on, draw from, is that 14th Amendment. And this is an old copy of one of my annotated United States Constitution. So what it is, it gives the section and the definition of what citizenship is at that time. And it's going to also focus specifically on not only the definition, but it's also going to let you know and understand what it meant or what it means in regards to these specific amendments, right? So let's look at this. And move on. It says definition of citizenship. It says 14th Amendment. It says, and this is a quote from the 14th Amendment, it says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States, of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law that shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any persons within its jurisdiction the equal protection of laws. And this is only part of the sections, because there are a few sections of this amendment, but we're just dealing with section 1. So I know there are other sections as well. It says, the 13th Amendment gave the so-called Negro freedom, but nothing more. That's the truth. It says the majority in Congress believed that his freedom could only be safeguarded by giving him the rights of citizenship. We're talking about those who were sympathizers and those who were radicals. This was accomplished by the adoption of the 14th Amendment. It says, from the outset, the national Constitution recognized a dual citizenship, a citizenship of the United States and citizenship of a particular state. Prior to the adoption of this amendment, citizenship, except in the case of naturalization, which we're not promoting, I'm not promoting it, just being honest, was derived from state citizenship. This was the opinion of the court in the infamous Dred Scott decision, Dred Scott case. The 14th Amendment reverses the construction so that state citizenship is now derived from the United States citizenship. All persons born and naturalized in the United States and subject to its jurisdictions as citizens of the United States by virtue of the fact that are also citizens of the state and where they reside. While the 14th Amendment was intended primarily for the benefit of the so-called, we know there's no such thing as a Negro race, it confers rights on citizenships upon any race if these persons are born in the United States or naturalized under this law. Now, the thing about this amendment, you find that a lot of people have crept in and they're using it for whatever reason for their own benefit. And when you start examining a little bit more on this amendment, we're going to see how it didn't really benefit the Japanese or the Chinese. So watch this. All right. I'm pulling it up now, and it says this. Oh, it's clear now. Good. Praise the Lord. Wait a minute, that's not it. Let me see. I don't know why, but it's. I think it has to do with. I think it's not coming in because of the. Let me see. I got it. I have it. It's right here. I think it's not coming in clear. Something's going on with that. But I used to upload the document. So my apologies, y'all, if it's coming in a little blurry. We're gonna make it, right by the time of the next segment. It says, and this is at that time, right? Because there were specific laws that were issued out to the
Mm-hmm.
Japanese, which was called the Asiatic Bar Act, in which they barred, and it was called the Asiatic Bar Act, in which they barred Chinese and Japanese from being citizens. There was a Chinese national at that time. I can't remember his name, but he was born here in the United States. He was born in San Francisco, but he also moved back to China. And as a result of that, they would give him a lot of upheaval in the early 1900s. I can't think of his name, but I will give it to y'all in a later date. It says neither the Chinese nor the Japanese can become naturalized citizens under the existing laws, but Chinese and Japanese children, so that's what he was, born in this country and subject to his jurisdiction, become citizens by birth. That's a big issue right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Birthright citizenship.
That's
So
right.
the history of the past is deeply rooted in the present. It says so-called Indians born of living parents on reservations under tribal jurisdiction are not citizens, but they may acquire citizenship if they leave the reservation and support themselves. The latter part of this paragraph was designed primarily to protect the so-called emancipated Negroes from discriminating legislation on the part of the states. So that's not, you're looking at citizenship. So
Mm-hmm.
you got people who were born here, Chinese, Japanese. The prophet mentions this, doesn't he?
That's
Who
right.
was here, right? You
Mm-hmm.
also have the so-called Indian. They got to leave the reservation, which is federally. How can I say it? It's not federally monitored, but we know and understand the history between the federal government and those so-called Indian reservations and lands.
That's right.
It said the latter part of this paragraph was designed primarily to protect the so-called emancipated Negroes from discriminating legislation on the parts of the states. Here's the word. The root word is privileges, right? What are the privileges and immunities of United States citizens, which no state may deny or abridge? Among the privileges that belong to United States citizenship are the right to hold office under the national government, to have its protection at home and abroad, etc. These and other privileges of the United States citizens are guaranteed against any encroachment on the part of the states. Thus, a state law which required that 80% of the employees in mines should be natives of the United States was held as unconstitutional because it abridged the privileges of naturalized citizens of the United States. Now watch this. Here's the flip. This clause, however, does not guarantee that the United States should have all the privileges of state citizenships. The right to vote, for example, is a privilege of state citizenship, and it is not conferred on the United States by this or any other amendment.
Hmm.
So that's a big thing right there. That's a
Mm-hmm.
big point. The United States government, and when you're dealing with this whole issue of voting rights acts, and people want to know why it has to be renewed every so often
Every 15 years.
for these Asiatics, it's because you're dealing with state citizenship. You're dealing with something that's not conferred on United States citizens by any amendment, but this is the states. And this is where you see, like, for example, we have seen that the Fifth Amendment forbids the national government to deprive anyone of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And here the same prohibition is placed on the states. And it tells you, see page 108, 109. The final clause of this paragraph provides that no state shall deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of his law. So the equal protection of the law is based on the interpretation of it, meaning that, yeah, I can provide you the same rights, but I don't have to provide you the same accommodations. I don't
Mm-hmm.
even have to provide you the same luxuries as long as I'm in the provisions of that equal protection. It
That's
said
right.
this provision was framed to safeguard the rights of the freedmen but it includes every person regardless of race and applies to aliens as well as citizens. Its object was to prevent any person or class of persons from being singled out as a special subject for discriminating and hostile legislation. And that really is the beef that you find today with the current president, and you also find it with our people, specifically Asiatics, those who identify themselves as Negroes, blacks, and colors, and even some Moorish Americans who got it twisted
Mm-hmm.
because they're following that 14th Amendment. And the prophet lets you know there's no need for the application of it. It wasn't meant for us. It was meant for the Southerners. You know, because when you look
Yeah,
at the Southerners,
it brought
go
the
ahead,
North and the South back in the unit.
back in the unit. It was theirs. You know what I'm saying? So even when you're dealing with us taking an oath of things, and that wasn't for us. You know what I'm saying? People say we got to take this oath, and when you really study that oath was actually, and I'm talking about, and I'm gonna just say it right here and there.
Hey, go ahead, Mo.
The oath of amnesty, that's not for us. When you really study and investigate it, it was for the Confederate. We weren't Confederates. We weren't out the constitutional fold. Many of our people, if they weren't contraband, they fought on the side of the Union. So it just, when you look at it historically, that right there didn't apply to us. And I think that we have to be honest and we have to be truthful where we are right now
Mm-hmm.
in society. It's not the fact that we are attempting to rewrite history or discredit the findings of elders and teachers of previous decades, but we really are examining things and we're finding out that specifically with that demonstration, that's for the Confederate. And when we say Confederate, we're not just talking about the European, but we're also talking about the Asiatic who was on the Confederate
Who
side as well.
fought on the Confederate side. Some Asiatics
That's right.
fought for the Confederates.
Come on now.
But it's still Asiatics, and even though that flag that they carry uh is an ancient Aboriginal concept,
Mm-hmm.
they rebranded that particular some of the Europeans rebranded that flag, and we know and understand what it stands for today. But you still have Asiatics who live in some of these southern states who
Fly
wear that
high.
flag with pride.
They fly high, Mo.
And let me tell you, when I was younger, I used to watch the Dukes of Hazzard, right?
Right, right.
I'm like, I'm sitting here like, man, I was watching the Dukes of Hazzard, and I'm like, so at the end of the day, Mo, we are we are providing people with um a better understanding of what it is that the prophet is directing us towards.
Right,
And we're not saying, you know, by all means, we're not saying that we have the end all be all, but we have a good basic understanding of what the prophet is demonstrating. And that's why we call it back to the basics. Because it ain't what my teacher say, your teacher say, it's what the prophets say according
that's right.
to his records.
Islam.
And then when we do a deeper investigation of what he's saying, and you look at it, you like, oh, okay, this it matches up with what the prophet is saying.
That's right.
And that's how you make it make sense. Not trying to put a square peg in a round hole.
Right.
Yeah.
They
So
won't fit.
yeah, praise Allah, man. This is when we do these shows, I learn just as much as that's why I like doing it.
Yeah, man.
Because I learn just
Going on.
as much as I possibly think I might know.
That's right.
So um yeah, it's a blessing. And we don't want people we're challenging everybody to think, and also we're challenging people to be participatory,
That's right.
because it is more sense is not anything without trying to help help our people and listen to our people, as well as teach them something, because we're working on solution oriented results. Yeah, so praise Allah, Islam.
Praise Allah. Well said. So again, if anyone has anything they want to say in the chat before we conclude, it's perfectly fine. Keep it respectful. So let's go through, the ending and the closing. So if you're in the Baltimore metropolitan area, come on out to 1055 North Milton Avenue. That's Temple number 13. We're located at Baltimore, Maryland. Our meeting hours are from 8 to 10 on Fridays, from 12 to 2 on Sundays. 8 to 10 is our holy day, our holy night. Meeting, come out, exercise. Of course, at all times, exercise your five senses, but come out and give praises to the great God of law, the God of your understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And then on Sundays, we have our Moorish Sunday School, which is our Q&A, our questions and answers, where you can come. You can ask any question pertaining to the Moorish Science Temple of America, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, any holy book, religious text. We come from them all, because we like to be well-rounded, well-versed, and we know and understand that you're dealing with our history. We also, I'm trying to think, do we have any other announcements? We don't have any other announcements at this time. We will be coming back with another segment. I mean, you may have an announcement, but we took some time off. So if you notice, we kind of staggered the shows. I took a month off, reset to get myself, in tune to balance. Because that's what you have to do. You have to find balance. We realized, it's a lot going on social media, and what I would say is only believe half of what you hear. Believe half of what you hear. Investigate it. Even investigate what we shared tonight. Don't take
Yeah,
our
absolutely.
value. Don't look at this program as being the end all be all, but visit your nearest Moorish Science Temple of America. If not us, or if not our temple, the nearest one you have. If you don't have one, reach out to us at moorishsensemedia@gmail.com, and we will definitely work to build a rapport with you to help you to locate a Moorish Science Temple of America, regardless of jurisdiction. But we want to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that, when we do help you, that you're going to a place where it's safe and where people are going to help you in your best abilities.
Yeah, and you're gonna do the most work that you possibly can do to help that temple out.
That's right. That's what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
No segregation. Um, so with that being said, Sheik, you want to lead and close out in prayer?
Oh yeah, yeah. Praise Allah.
Praise
Yeah.
Allah.
Oh, do you have an Instagram page, Mo?
We do have one, but I really haven't pulled it out. But we do have the YouTube channel. And the
Yeah.
YouTube channel has become a little bit more interactive. Going to continue to build on it. If you're watching on Facebook, definitely go to the Moorish Sense Channel YouTube page, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. If you dislike it, that's fine too. We ain't tripping.
Yeah,
Constructive
yeah,
criticism is good. We got a couple of naysayers out there.
yeah.
But
Absolutely.
one thing you won't do, and I'm challenging you, just joking, you won't come on this channel. All jokes aside, we invite you on the channel, man. We
And
invite you on the
if
channel.
you do come on this channel,
Yeah,
we
come
don't
correct, man. Come correct.
come correct.
Come
And what
correct,
we
bro.
mean by that is don't come making up stuff. Don't
Fight.
come disrespectful.
No, don't do
You
that.
understand? Like,
Yeah,
we ain't no killers or nothing like that. But
don't push us.
you are not going to be disrespectful. And if
Nah.
you are, stay where you are.
Yeah,
Cause yeah, we don't take no tea for no fever either.
right.
So
That's right. Brothers and sisters of other denominations as well. You
yeah,
more
yeah,
than
yeah. Praise
welcome
Allah.
as well. Again, as the Sheikh mentioned before, we don't debate, we communicate.
Communicate.
So we're
And
willing to sit down.
that's what it's about. It's about communication.
That's right, man.
We could disagree, but we don't mind communicating with you. And but the communication has to be respectful.
That's right.
Yeah.
Love.
Praise Allah. So I'm on Instagram, Muslim. I think it's Muslim underscore Sheik.
A lot of good archive work the Sheik is doing. A lot
Huh?
of good archive. I want to talk about you. A lot of good archive pictures.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah, yeah. A lot of older pictures of Dr. R. German Bay,
Mhm.
um, some masters who have transitioned uh, that was a part of our genealogy. Um, a lot of things that we didn't even know existed.
That's right.
Um, so more pictures to come, but also if you do have some pictures, ancient Moorish pictures, please send it to our email at more sense
More sense media at gmail.com.
more sense media at gmail.com.
and we'll give you credit. We'll put photo
Yeah,
credit
yeah, yeah. So
towards
we're
whatever.
not trying to, we're
We
not
ain't taking
trying
no pictures.
to steal your shine or nothing. We
Right.
just ask that you share with us because what we're doing is preserving the community, and we are actually what we are doing is a part of community development. So and more things to come
We'll
because
share with you what we have likewise, because we have
yeah,
a great
yeah, absolutely. Anything we have that
fair
can
change is
assist
no
you,
rivalry.
yeah, anything we have that can assist you, we will share it with you.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So yeah, that's about it.
Praise Allah.
Yeah, praise Allah. Islam. And we close out in prayer.
Islam.
Islam,
Islam.
Islam,
Islam.
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 Allah, the Father of the universe,
Allah, the Father of the universe,
the Father of love,
Father of love,
truth,
truth,
peace,
peace,
freedom,
freedom,
and justice.
and justice.
Allah is my protector,
Allah is my protector,
my guide,
my God,
and my salvation
my salvation,
by night
by night
and by day
and by day,
through his holy prophet,
through his holy prophet,
Drew Ali.
through Ali.
Amen.
Amen.
Islamism.
It's live. See you later on, brothers and sisters.